Okay, so in August of 2011, I read the Goon. How many did I read? I read one, two, three, four, five, six, seven things, and almost all of those were graphic novels, which is acceptable in my world. Um, yeah, there was exactly one book that I read. It was a really good book, though. So the first thing I read was The Goon, Volume 7, A Place of Heartache and Grief, and I finally bothered to look that up on Wikipedia. It's Volume 6, actually, that is Chinatown and the Mystery of Mr. Wicker. Hold on, let me double check that. Uh, ba, 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 ba. Chinatown and the Mystery of Mr. Wicker, which was a standalone thing that goes into more of the Goon's past when he is working for the circus and his Aunt Kizzy is murdered by Lazlo. And it skips from that to where the Goon has been in charge of Lazlo's gang for a long time. And he takes a brief hiatus because he falls in love with this woman in Chinatown. Um, and comes out of that whole experience much more bitter and cynical and violent. Um, but that was a really, it's a really depressing, but it's a really brilliantly written series. It's pretty much the only, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's more or less the only one in the series that is very serious. There's no kind of goofy wackiness on the side that Eric Powell usually does. Um, and I think um, it was sort of a change in the way that the series was going, where it was increasingly more serious, but also it would have still really bizarre, ridiculous things. So the one after that, A Place of Heartache and Grief, yes, it refers to the events that take place in Chinatown. Um, I think in that one, what's he called? He's the zombie doctor or something like that. He gives up one of his eyes in order to have more power. There's some evil magician that comes out of nowhere that is trying to defeat the Goon. So this sort of subplot dealing with Norton and his mother, who are Gypsy slash Romany, um, that they have some score to settle with this sorcerer who the uh, the evil zombie wizard. He's not a zombie, but he uh, he is an underling to this guy. Apparently, he was a lot more powerful. Um, so that's Eric Bell is always good. So the next two are more of the Goon. It's Those That Is Damned. Um, I think that goes into the backstory of this character, um, Vulture, who uh, is sort of this kind of wraith, kind of zombie person, and but he's not really a zombie because zombies, of course, eat living people, whereas he is plagued with eternal hunger, but he only eats dead people, and he has some sort of standing truce with the Goon because he also hates the, I'm gonna come up with that character's name, and it's gonna kill me. Yeah, dang it, I don't know. I can't remember his name. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that guy, the evil sorcerer person with the hat that's got a human face on it, he um, created the guy called Vulture a long time ago, who is cursed because a long time ago he had made some sort of deal with this evil woman who made him eventually waste away, and that was how he became that. I don't remember, but so that's volume 8, Place of Heartache and Grief. I'm sorry, these are kind of vague. And then volume 9 is a Calamity of Conscience. There are some characters that come back in that one. I don't want to give too much away. Those 3 are actually pretty significant events in the Goon universe. Yeah, that is a big sort of end of an arc in terms of the story, and it's overall pretty dark and depressing, but it's pretty awesome. There's some characters that come back from Chinatown in that, and that is, it's not entirely resolved, but it's sort of resolved. It's largely resolved. After that, I read Hellboy, Masks and Monsters, which was a collection. The first one was, I think, yeah, it was a 3-part story that I had read, that I had the part 1 and part 2 of. That's Batman, Hellboy, and Starman. And that was written by James Robinson and drawn by Mike Mignola. That was a weird story. I'm not really familiar with Starman, but he seems like sort of a cool character. I think it may have been an older character, but the trades I've seen were illustrated by Tony Harris. And Tony Harris I know mostly because he was the cover and the interior illustrator for Ex Machina, which was a series by Brian K. Vaughan, was most known for for Y the Last Man, which I mentioned in the previous video when I read The Last Man, and he also wrote the series Runaways, that is about superhero kids of supervillain parents, basically. So that is my association with Starman, but I really don't know very much about him. That series has some sort of Lovecraftian themes to it. It's been long enough that I don't remember it too well. The one I read, so there's that one in that collection, and then there's Ghost slash Hellboy that was written and laid out by Mike Mignola, but then it was actually illustrated by Scott Benefiel, Jasen Rodriguez, and colored by Pamela Rambo. And that is sort of a supernatural kind of crime comic. There's this person who was murdered in this hotel, and so he's laid sort of this curse on the hotel, and Hellboy and this character Ghost, who is, I guess she's supposed to be a spirit, or just she's able to commune with spirits. She wears white and is actually one of the few not unbelievably scantily clad superheroes of sorts. So she and Hellboy are trying to solve this problem, and they have to go into the afterlife, basically, in order to get this guy back. And there's something about the dream world, I think. Something with masks. Yeah. So that's Masks and Monsters. And I borrowed that from my girlfriend, who also likes Hellboy, because she's awesome. Then the Goon, Volume 10, that's Greedy Comeuppance, which is more with Vulture, and I think that's mostly a self-contained trade that is just, almost all of it is just a story with Vulture, and I think there's like maybe a side story at the end with the Goon, but it's not something that's necessarily in continuity, it's just a goofy side story. And that's very well illustrated and kind of sad because it deals with death and kind of evil small town people. Not that all small town people are evil, but these ones in the book certainly are. Then after that I read The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. I think that's part of a 4-part book series. And I think I might need to cut this off and break this into 2 videos. Let me see. Oh, nope, I still got about 4 minutes. But if I'm worried about going over, I can do another video that'll go a little bit more into The Thief and House of Mystery. So The Thief is sort of historical fiction. It's certainly based on historical events. It's essentially in Greece and Italy and you know, Southeast Europe, and it's hard to talk about it without giving too much away. But the first one is about this character whose name is, I don't know if it's Eugenides or Eugenides, but he often goes by Jen. And he is a thief, and he's at the beginning of the story, he's been rotting in jail for a month or something, and he makes this deal with the king of a city-state that he's going to go and steal something from an adjoining city-state, and that is basically going to effectively get him out of being hung or killed or whatever, what the punishment would be for stealing from the crown. And there's some interesting twists and turns in the story. It's very well written, and I've read the second book since then. I think I read that after the new year, so it's probably not going to be in the year-end books for this year. But yeah, I would recommend that. It's a really easy read and very exciting, and you know, trying to figure out what is going on and what the different characters' motivations are. So yeah, I think I'm probably gonna cut this off early and probably do the last thing, last item with September. And yeah, so that's most of August for 2011.